It's Edge Radio Australia. Malloy with you, and we are ready, of course, for the Greater Wealth that we do every week. Fantastic show. Why is it a fantastic show? Because Derek Whittaker over here, full of knowledge, a true professional, a man of his time, puts together fantastic information for us to talk about, and he's just so in tune with what we need. And then, of course, we have Travis on the other hand.
Heartbroken.
And as my mum has said, look, if you've got nothing nice to say, nothing at all. So about 60 minutes of silence when it comes to you and me, mate. So just joking. The Shave Monkey, good to see you, Travis.
Hang on, I've got an itch on my forehead.
Oh yeah, I can see that. I can see that. So. All right. And what about Derek, mate? Are you happy to be here, mate? That's the most
mate, I'm as happy as Larry. The question is, how happy is Larry?
Good question, Larry.
I'm well.
All right. Okay.
Is Larry standing up?
Let's leave Larry out of this for a moment. I want to jump into this because actually the subject matter.
I need to do a public service announcement first.
Okay.
So we've had questions about where my beanie had been.
Yes.
So what happened is it actually went into the wash and I didn't even know. That's what happens when the wife's on holidays for like a month.
Just shows how useless he is at looking after himself, but never mind. Now
the beanie is back.
He's back. Okay, we're going to jump into it. But the thing that I want to talk about, so the first subject we're going to talk about is interesting because you think to me, my first sort of thought was we're going to talk about Airbnb. Like, okay, it's not something I use every, week, right? So why does this relate to ourselves and everyday Australians? And I think, Derek, you're probably the best man to tell us.
I think the biggest, when I used to work in law, accounting, financial planning firms, one of the biggest growth of wealth was real estate.
Yeah.
In Australia in particular. Okay. And your typical scenario was you buy a house, you rent it out.
Yep.
We called it buy and hold. Okay.
Buy and hold. Okay.
That's the strategy.
Sounds like a card game, but
it's really simple. Then you've got the thing called Airbnb, which kind of disrupted the whole hotel industry in a big way. And it gave people opportunity to get additional income for their rentals.
Sure.
It challenged the hotel industry. So no, you didn't have somebody at reception smiling as you arrived and giving you, air conditioning and all this sort of stuff everywhere.
The normal goodies,
in the business departments, all that sort of stuff. But you had a situation where housing that was once difficult to get in hotels, given hotels will be built where a lot of people gather.
Sure.
In more regional areas and stuff like that, there's a need for people to visit those places. But if the hotels aren't there, then your next one is you look for Airbnb.
Yeah, sure.
Additionally, families like mine, where we've got a lot of kids, it's harder to get accommodation in a hotel because they don't suit it. They don't have 4 little ones you can throw into a...
And your kids are well behaved.
That's right.
Imagine if you got terrorists.
And in one room, they're all clawing each other and all that sort of thing. So Airbnb solved a lot of issues.
Yeah. Okay.
What is the issue now is that government is wanting to control it a lot more.
Really? Government control?
Because they've caused a problem of their own device. They've let a lot more people into the country than we have housing for.
So true.
And then we go, okay, there are people struggling to get a rental in this place. And of course, rental prices have gone through the roof.
They have.
And of course, the building industry just cannot keep up. And with supply chains that have been disrupted over the COVID period, that's really impacted the building industry.
From someone who's
you're allowed to disagree. You're allowed to disagree.
It's not that the building industry can't keep up. It can. It's just it's next to impossible to release land because there's too much government intervention.
Well, yeah.
The approval process is just way too long. It's like to get the water or power connected, you're looking at a 2-year wait.
Sure.
Cool.
So, and that's all government. That's not builders or anything like that.
Now,
sorry.
No, great point. Thank you for clarifying that. Victoria started in last September of 2023 introducing a levy on Airbnb.
But it's not like Victoria to be over governing anything. I don't understand. This seems so strange.
Yeah,
The problem
it's
is
crazy.
If Victoria does it, we're gonna follow.
And they did it as a 7.5% levy.
What?
7.5%.
Oh, could this be to pay Belton Road? I'm not sure.
There's also, and I'll get to WA in a minute, but they're also looking at wanting to introduce into New South Wales now. And of course, the price of New South Wales are just through the roof in trying to get into the real estate game.
Sure.
And it's scarce. So a lot of property investors too, this is where it comes into play. Okay, negatively geared property, which is basically the expenses to hold the property are greater than the rental return and receiving.
Sure.
That's why Airbnb sometimes looks more attractive because instead of renting it out for, let's say, $500 a week, you could perhaps do $250 a night.
That's right.
And exceed what you would have, gathered
Yeah.
over a week.
Higher
This
profits, simple as that.
This is, but you don't have that long-term tenant, etc. So there's pros and cons to it.
sure.
But for a lot of people, they thought, hey, Airbnb for the property investor is a great idea. Where it gets really interesting too for Western Australia is I was talking to one of my mates who is into the property investing world, and he was saying to me that there's proposed legislation that you'd only be able to rent out your houses on an Airbnb or short-term rental space for 3 months of the year.
I have heard this, yes.
Which makes it far more difficult to actually be viable because obviously most tenants want a 6 month to 12-month lease.
Yep.
When they take on a rental. And you can understand that because somebody with a family and kids and all
You want
that.
security. You want to know that home's going to be home for a set amount of time.
And it's costly to move all the time too, because you got to get removalists in and out. And
I don't know. My last move was very cheap. It's very quick.
And you could argue it was government initiated.
Yeah. Go on. Couldn't help myself. Go on.
I'll probably get a lawsuit from that comment.
Probably. Oh dear.
But what you've got like people, social media influencers on TikTok saying, hey, you look at the actual costs of Airbnb. Okay, you break down the costs. It's blowing out what would be like $179 a night.
Sure.
These levies now going on and a hosting fee. You're looking at something like $400 a night. And they're going, why would we do this? Why we would just book back into a hotel?
That's right.
So it's a double-edged sword, this, in terms of if government does this, it's going to affect not only just the landlord's situation, which I will add, copped a lot of it during COVID in what they could and couldn't do. The tenants suddenly had power and whether they couldn't pay.
The tenants always had power, but anyway.
Yeah, but they had even greater power.
Certainly did
In that period. And I hear you.
As a landlord,
I hear
I
hear you.
Getting someone out of the house is an absolute. It's insane.
I hear
it is so heavily geared towards tenants who do the right thing, it's the landlord has all the power. But the moment a tenant behaves badly, it's next to impossible to get rid of them, especially if they're Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander.
Yep. Look, any rental situation should be a win-win for everyone. A landlord really wants the rent paid on time and the house to be looked after. Okay.
Yep.
It's really simple. The tenant wants security that, hey, I'll do the right thing by you. Leave me alone. I want my privacy. Right. It's a win-win if that can be met, but it's complicated, right? It can get complicated in this situation. The flow and effect of this as well with Airbnb is it affects industries like tourism.
Of course it does.
Okay.
Yep.
So if you've got really regional areas, particularly in Australia, where somebody has a property and they want to let it out as Airbnb, and now you're putting these kind of restrictions on them, further tax levies, it's going to affect how long people stay in places.
The flow and effect too.
The local economies of those regional areas. It's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, again, to me, it's just more government interference, and basically they're putting their hand in the cookie jar just another time. What is it with Labor governments? The way of solving everything is a tax.
So
honestly,
who was it? I think it was Obama who actually said this. I could be wrong, so please don't quote me on this one.
Okay.
So they're saying if you want people to stop doing something, you tax the shit out of it. Well, he didn't say tax the shit out. He said you just tax it. You just keep increasing the taxes until it comes too expensive to actually use. So you got to have a look at with Airbnbs. Why is the government looking to do this?
I agree.
Because they're trying to push people back into the hotel system. Because if it becomes too expensive, let's say you've got Nana and Pop, the kids have moved out of home. They've got 2 spare bedrooms. So a lot of the original Airbnbs.
Yep.
Oh, that's a carton.
That is a carton.
I left my phone not on silent. So they did it as a second form of income on a house that they're no longer using.
Sure.
So you had a lot of retirees or close to retirement people setting up a couple of bedrooms so people could rent them out, $100 a night, $150 a night. That's how Airbnb started.
Sure.
Hotels didn't like it because they were losing a crap load of money. And like Derek said, it made it a lot easier for him because he could just grab 2 rooms, put the kids in one room, adults in another room, happy days. A lot easier. It opened up a lot more access to places like Hyden, Kalgoorlie. Well, Kalgoorlie's got hotels, but the hotels in Geraldton aren't the greatest. I've stayed out a few of them. They're pretty terrible, but some of the houses that were Airbnb are absolutely amazing. So Airbnb did what Uber did to the taxi industry. It filled a niche and brought a lot of competition into the market. So I personally think that the government, like the hotel system, you got to remember hotels are worth insane amount of money
course they
as a whole. I think you'll find that it's also putting a lot more pressure on the government for that side of things. They
Mhm.
don't want Airbnb around, so that's impacting them.
So you might think, okay, am I too
This is a perfect storm.
this is a lobbying sort of issue?
I think there's been a lot of lobbying from the hotel industry.
Yep.
I think there's been a lot of pressure from the homeless associations around Australia who are going, look, there's all these houses set up for Airbnb, but we need that for the homeless people. So you got to remember the homeless situation wasn't caused by Airbnb.
No.
It was caused by the government not releasing land. Now,
and also bringing ridiculous amounts of immigration.
That was the next one I was about to
Immigration
go into.
101. That's
So,
what it is.
the biggest solution, and I think for landlords, they need to be prepared for this. They've got to take this into their account for the next 10-year plan.
Yeah.
House prices are still going to go up for a while, but it's going to get to the point they have to release land. They've got to deal with the homeless problem. And what's going to happen once they start releasing the land prices are going to start stagnating or go backwards.
I half agree with that.
Yeah.
I absolutely totally believe that there is going to be a substantial drop in the real estate market. I really genuinely
when the
do.
land gets released, the land has to be released first.
Yeah, look,
The supply and demand is just too great.
Yeah.
So
I mean, everyone needs a place to live, right?
Yeah.
But the system right now
Yes,
is not
Aaron.
sustainable. Yes, yeah, absolutely, right.
so I have to ask,
Mm,
how long since the fire? When was the fire?
in November,
November.
Yeah.
And we're now in March.
Yep.
December, January, February, March. That's 4 months.
Correct.
And you still can't get your own place
correct.
as an Australian citizen.
Cannot find a
But
place.
yet we can find migrants' houses.
Yeah, well, yeah. Thank you so much. So I'm
Sorry,
not gonna,
this is a
we're
real
not-
bed bug for me.
yeah,
Like,
but we're not going to go
fix-
off to there because we're going to
Fix
stay
our
to
own
the-
neighborhood first before we start helping
Absolutely.
other people.
It's so
Sorry,
true.
I had to
It's
slip
so
that one
true.
in.
It's so true. And there's also a lot of other biases that are coming involved. So
Why? Because you're a white male. Well,
to
you're
be
a white
abs-
Indian.
Yeah, to be that's funny you should say that, because I'm telling you right now, there is two groups who are finding homes, who are at the top of the list and who can get homes quite easily, and that is women and Indians, right?
Indians?
Yes, absolutely. 'Cause
Really?
Indians are like, okay, this is a bit of free enterprise. Okay, so a lot of Indians are going out, and what they're doing is they're renting a house,
Yeah.
and then they're renting the rooms out for XYZ amount each, right,
Yeah.
and making a profit out of it. So
No,
they've turned it into a business.
The Asians have been doing that
Yeah,
for
and
decades.
doing it really,
that's
really
how
well.
Milan
So-
survived to university.
Well,
days.
there you go. And as an Indian of lighter complexion, I don't qualify.
You're an
which is a bit-
albino Indian.
I know, bit of a shame. But
Just
yeah, so
learn to
I'm
tilt
not.
your head properly.
So we are seeing that happen. And quite frankly, if you're a male out there looking for a home right now, you're going to be looking for a very long time. You're going to
Especially
spend,
if you got a cat.
if you've got a cat, and I do. So you're going to be sleeping in your car a lot, but or finding friends. And I've been very lucky to
Couch surfing,
been
I think.
very
they call
well
it.
looked after.
So-
But okay, look, forgetting all of that, let's look at again the financial aspects of all of this. And the reality is that
They're
when
trying
you,
to kill Airbnb.
when you have government stepping in to do this, they are literally, look, I mean, they also tried to kill Uber. Remember that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
They
it
don't
was too
like
late.
it was too
Uber
late.
was too big.
toothpaste was out of the tube. But okay, like what is it? What is it? And I'm going to keep harping on about Labor governments because they've got my goat. They really have. I'm looking
It
back
is
and I'm
both.
seeing a pattern of Labor governments. Okay, they're just tax, and are anti-competition. They
I
do everything
I'm
possible
going
to
to
kill
answer this one for
competition.
you, and I'm going to get this.
Yeah, we've got some.
direct.
Yeah, we've got some people who are
It
actually
is
speaking online.
the, Labor. Come back to me on this one. I'm just going to pull up
Okay,
their constitution.
And for those who are sending through messages on social media, thank you very much for that. We'll get Travis to bring those forward in just a moment. But okay, mate, look, what are your thoughts? I mean, on the whole, do you think this is just too much government interference?
I think if you buy a piece of land, you should be entitled to do what you want with that piece
That's
of
what
land.
I think too.
Right.
Mhm.
So I don't like that it's restricting what you can and can't do, because I mean, the landlord is taking the risk here. They're taking, if a bank is involved, they're taking out a loan.
Yep.
Then they're taking on the risk of government interference. They're taking on the risk of a tenant who doesn't do the right thing by
Mhm.
them, or
Mhm.
property managers who don't do their job and aren't on point and report things to them,
There's a few out there.
as the case may be. And that's just buy and hold. But in Airbnb, if they're going to manage it themselves or have a system to manage it, I go, fantastic. I think free enterprise allows people to solve these problems and finds a way to do it. The market has a way of filling the gaps.
Look, it's
Wait,
the old
sorry,
joke.
we've got a comment. It's just
Absolutely.
great. Erica Hunt.
Hey, Erica, how you going?
Love this bird. Far Ken No, that's far.
Yeah.
Ken.
Yes.
Robbers, they are.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, I love
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely.
Erica, feel free to swear.
And
but
I
this
know,
is free.
and I also want to make something clear. Okay, I'm not promoting Liberal or anyone at the moment, quite frankly, any other political party. I'm just pointing out the fact that life seems to go downhill in an absolute hurry every single time that Labor Party, that socialist goddamn party is in play, and they are anti-competition. More competition improves the breed. Okay, that's the thing. Okay, and it improves
wanna-
everyone's
Well,
opportunity.
what you're going to see happen is if it gets really bad, people who love investing in property will go overseas.
Of course it will.
Yeah.
And that money will be
Already
taken
looking at it. So
to
anyway.
go to other countries, and they'll look at what are the risks there, what are the political risks there.
Yep.
And am I going to get a better return for investment? And what they'll discover is that land in other parts of the world is a lot cheaper than it is in Australia in their own backyard.
Yep.
Yeah. So I just want to. I've been doing a bit of looking because I
Let me
knew
just,
about.
can I just
Okay.
finish one more
You go.
thought on
Absolutely,
that?
mate.
There are, however, other risks involved with international investing.
Sure.
And I know this because I ran a property syndicate overseas once.
Okay.
So there are pros and cons to this. You've got to consider what suits your risk profile.
Mhm.
And if you get into a syndicate like I did, where a number of people are invested in it,
Yes.
you've got to look at what the wants are of those individuals as well.
Everyone wants something different, don't they?
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's very true. I mean, it's okay. So if let's just say me in my current situation,
Mm.
if I went, look, screw this, I've had enough of being pushed around by government. I've had enough of my free speech being attacked. I've had enough with being told what I can and can't do.
Leave
And
the
I-
country.
Leave the country. What if I go and just go find another country, set myself, go, hey, you know what? Had a few trips to Bali, love Bali. Okay. Got some friends over there who live there. What's the stop from a financial point? What are the risks there? And I can't expect, I'm throwing this on you, so I can't expect a thorough answer. But, of buying property over there.
You can't. Not in Bali. You've got to be. I think you've got to be either married or be a Balinese citizen to buy land.
In terms of international investing, one of the things that I look at is political stability.
Okay.
Okay. If the nation is there's political unrest,
Mhm.
that is a huge consideration. I mean, you don't necessarily want to be buying into war-torn areas, and I state the obvious, but we have
cheap
heard of
land.
coups going out.
Look, some of these places you want to put a pool in, someone drops a bomb. Fantastic.
easy.
Right?
Happy
the thing
days.
about
Put a target down right here, guys.
the thing I discovered about property investing is what customer do you want to be dealing with, right?
Great point.
And there's like 3 levels of customers. I'm going to break it down. So there is
Break it down.
the higher properties, right? The top end, the mansions and all that sort of stuff, who have all the bells and whistles.
Yep.
The issue with that is, do you want to be dealing with a client that, the garage door's not closing, this is an emergency,
Mhm.
right?
That's because
High
the Bentleys in
maintenance.
the back.
That's right.
Exposed to the
Exactly.
Is this called the Karen factor? I'm just
no,
wondering.
that's
Okay.
because they've got a $300,000 car. They don't want someone.
And they're paying high rent for a reason.
They are?
And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
they
true.
want those things
Yeah.
fixed. I'm going, look, I'm paying for it. You better fix it.
Fair cool.
right?
I get it. I get
Then
it.
let's go to the other extreme, the low end of property where, the garage door now has been stolen and they don't consider that an emergency.
Yes.
No, that's because they haven't paid their rent for 3 months.
Yeah. Well, whatever it might be, then you're dealing with properties that are often in high crime areas that attract that kind of client that may necessarily, there's other risk. And I'm not going to point out suburbs and say this.
I will.
No,
Rangeway.
don't.
No, I've got units in Rangeway. The high crime rate, it is there, but the flip side is the rate of return is insanely good.
The rate of return is fantastic. It can be positively geared.
Right.
But I had a situation where I was investing internationally,
Mhm.
and that tenant burnt down the house after not paying the rent for so many months. Okay?
Wow. Okay.
The other risk that I had was I had a property manager who was stealing and taking advantage of people who were out of state, right? And
Okay.
hadn't banked any of the tenants' money. So these are sort of things I've learned along the
Sure.
way. And anytime you go international, if you're trying to do it from Australia, is that communication takes longer.
True.
Just because of the time differences, you can't just go down and look at the property and say, okay, I can see what's going on. And sometimes the property managers live 40 minutes from the actual property, and that in some situations as
Okay.
well. So they're not going to just pop down and look at it as well. So
No.
there's all these pros and cons of international. You've got to really look at it and really hopefully know the area, do your due diligence on the area, and
Agree.
pick which socioeconomic. A friend of mine who's an experienced property investor, he used to like to go for the crowd that have got good jobs, They're wanting to buy their own place, which means
Mm-hmm.
they're keen to improve themselves and
Okay.
improve their lives and keep up a good credit score and all that kind of stuff. He would like to target them because he
Sure.
said they're ambitious.
Yep.
He said, I don't want to deal with the high end because it's just, you'll never make money off it because you have to fix the light globe. You have to get somebody to do this and that. You don't want to deal with the low end because you're also always risking the place being demolished and what's the word, the technical word, Travis, you're in the property sector?
Trash.
Malicious damage.
Yeah.
Malicious damage is what I'm thinking. Trash, yes. That's a literal term. You want to kind of be in between. That was where he liked it. And I think you've got to ask, who do I want to be dealing with? In your situation, I think it's different because you're talking about moving from A to B, and residential is always different from that. So
Sure.
if you're looking for a holiday home,
Mm.
right, that you want to visit for a few months and then come back to Australia or something
Just
like
a
that,
home will do for the moment. But okay. Yeah, cool.
you know, if you're going to move, you've got to go, right, well, how am I going to get an income?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's the big
There's a
one.
lot more to it.
And do I want to maintain my lifestyle at Australian foreign currency level as
Ooh.
opposed to my surround? So if you're in a country there, the foreign currency is a lot lower and
Yep.
everything's really cheap, that's great. But if you try to get a job there, guess what? You're not
Oh,
going to be
yeah,
earning
that's
Australian
right.
wages.
Yeah, that is so true. That people look at other countries and go, "Oh, look, that's so cheap." Whatever, that's fine. But exactly that, it's not for the locals, isn't it? Because everything's at a different level.
The other thing you got to take into account. So I'm going to use Vietnam as an example because I know Vietnam better than all the other Southeast Asian countries.
Yep.
So as a foreigner, you are not actually allowed to stay in a house if you're not married to the owner or someone who lives in that house.
Really?
You have to stay in a hotel room. So there's a lot of these other little quirks that the government puts in place. So
Mhm.
when Biz Luan and I got married in Vietnam, so
Yep.
I wasn't actually allowed to stay at the family home until after we got married.
Good Catholic boy, or not
Christian. But
Christian.
Anyway.
Sorry,
So
the old habits die hard.
yeah. So one of the things I wanted to bring up before when you said about Labor,
Mhm.
was it always the Labor government? So what
Yes.
I've done, I've actually pulled up the Labor Constitution.
Oh,
So this is the national Labor Constitution. So if you're wondering why Labor is so shit, there it is. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm just going to like scroll down a little bit for you. So obviously ALP, National Constitution, you're going down. We want part 4.
okay.
So if we go down, here we go. The Australian Labor Party is a democratic socialist party.
I know.
Like it's right there in
It's
the
right there.
Constitution. So anyone who says that Labor is not socialist, you're an idiot. You're an absolute muppet.
But they're the people that call other people the N word, the
Yeah.
shorter N word, okay?
Yeah.
Because they don't realize that particular N word from Germany in the 30s and 40s, actually that Z is an S. It's socialist, right?
Yeah.
People wake up to yourselves. And I don't want to be harsh, but like I see so many people now who have these opinions on things they've got no education on, right? And
Sorry,
I'm probably one of them, but there you go.
Brandon, you need a slap. So,
Brandon.
Hey, mate, who do you steal your beanie from? So, first of all, I didn't steal it. My nana knitted it for me. She's a Dockers supporter. So, yes. And Pop used to play footy for South Fremantle. So,
Very
I'm
cool.
kind of stuck with the Fremantle side of things.
Mhm.
Now, what's the
I
only
used
ship?
to enjoy watching him play too.
What watching them lose? What was the only ship that won't come to Fremantle?
The premiership.
Premiership.
Yeah, I know. I know.
So, yeah,
I know.
transgender Smurf, like, F you, like, seriously. Yeah, one love, good work, guys. Yeah, you need a slap. Anyway,
Well-
hang on. There's a bit of an argument here.
All right. I'll just
It's
yes.
a pile of Dockers undies, apparently from Erica. Yeah, thanks.
Well,
Just a
I
reminder,
like-
who won the footy yesterday?
No idea. I can't watch the Dockers
The
because they're so
Dockers won.
terrible.
Dockers won. There you go. So there wasn't just complete like pain and misery for West Australia.
Mm.
Okay, cool. Just while I've got these
Did we
chats,
actually win?
just apparently.
Very
Nice.
convincingly too.
Here's the thing. While we've
against the
got
Eagles?
Brandon on air, I just want to throw out, look, massive. Well, I don't know what's the word. Just going to give you lots of love, mate. Really,
Okay, Orange Brick Road.
he's
Just
a
tell me what time the show is.
fantastic fella. Obviously, the owner of Orange Brick Road. Anything crypto, really, really great to get the information. We have the Crypto Hour of Power on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. But yeah, to
Replays are done on Sunday.
they
out
certainly are. They
sometime.
certainly are. If you want some really good financial information in the crypto space, you can't miss the Crypto Hour of Power.
Now, talking about education, don't forget the one and the only Derek Whitaker right here, blueskyfactory.com.au.
Could not agree more.
It's really important to get the basics of all, understand the finances before you go into this.
Yep.
So he does have a great show called Building the Wealth Foundation. And for the people who are a little bit more advanced and you want to get into like options trading and
Mm-hmm.
things like that, he also has another course called
20 weeks options premium course. Yeah.
Did
We
it change
basic-
its title?
No.
Oh,
it's-
okay.
Well,
That's what it's
sort of, but
Yeah. Anyway, I've done both the courses. They're phenomenal. They're insane. So yeah, just make sure you do that.
Thank you.
Education is power. Like, knowledge is power. Away we go. And it's, if you've got this information, whether it be, in any financial sense, obviously you can move forward and get the best advantage for yourself. So get yourself on board. Blue Sky Factory and Orange Brick Road.
Yep. And if you do need details and you can't find their websites, just go to the edgeradioaustralia.com.au.
Yep.
Are we .com?
No, there's no AU,
No,
mate. There's just .com.
Why do I always put the AU in?
Because
We got to get the
Strange. No, we don't. No, we don't.
AU. Oh, we're
We
Edge
just
Radio
don't.
Australia.
That's why it's in the title. Anyway, go on.
Happy days.
All right. Let's move on. Okay. So, Mr. Whitaker.
I love your marketing planning meetings. Cool. The other thing I want to talk about Australian property in relation to now, when I look at this kind of headlines, I go, is this a media beat up or is there actually something there? All right.
Okay.
So I want to put it in that framework. And I know that because I used to work in the media. All right. Sky News has revealed a story where they have wanted to get information from the Labor government, federal Labor government, in relation to advice that have gone between Treasury and the Treasurer, Jim Chalmers.
Okay.
And it's all about whether they're going to change negative gearing and capital gains tax arrangements for landlords of property.
This is big. This is big.
Now, this is what's been done, and they didn't come forward. So Sky News approached them under the Freedom of Information Act and says, look, we want information from September of 2023 to today, to present, that has occurred in terms of the arrangements of negative gearing and capital gains tax for investment properties.
Okay.
The Treasury Department came back with, your request is too broad and too large for us to give you these documents, this information. There's just over 1,000 documents that are related to this query.
Mm.
So it was kind of like, we can't do this, and it would take us away from other staff work that is required to do.
I'm going to change that. It's not we can't do this. That's we don't want to do this.
Right. So Sky News then approached the Treasurer and asked him, look, what's been going on in terms of the planning between you and the Treasury? Are they advising you? And he says that we have no plans to do capital gains tax and muck around with negative gearing. Now,
Okay. Well, look, he's been a man of his
call
word.
Bullshit. I call bullshit immediately.
Exactly.
Because let's look at Mark McGowan in WA.
Okay.
So Mark McGowan said he had no plans to modify the regions of the electorates in the upper house.
Mm-hmm.
Then he won both upper house, lower house within like 2 weeks after winning the elections. All of a sudden, our entire electoral system in WA
Are you
changed.
telling me that politicians lie?
Of course.
Oh.
Sorry, he didn't lie because he said it wasn't on the radar.
Of course.
Okay, so
well
then we go
worded.
further. Firearm reforms.
Mm-hmm.
So no, we're not done touch that. I think since he's been in power, we've had 3 or 4 different firearm reforms. Okay. So, and on top of that, Papalia announced and put out a map showing where every single firearm was stored in WA.
I can't believe
So, anyways, massive breach of privacy. Going further again. So it seems every single time the government turns around and says they're not going to do something, like they're not going to touch superannuation, all of a sudden they change the legislation around superannuation.
Sure.
So they're capping on it, the negative gearing side of things. Every time they say they're not looking at something, guarantee you they're looking at it.
Okay, Albanese not long ago, going to the election, all of that said, they weren't going to change the tax cuts, and then went and changed all the tax cuts. Okay, he absolutely formally just confirmed the fact that he is a complete liar and that we cannot trust him. Right?
Sorry, Erica's on fire at the moment. She asked a question about options, and I said, I will get Derek to message her later.
Okay, fantastic.
So she goes, where is it? Thanks, Captain Underpants. Great work.
just private messages, Radio Australia. And we can swap numbers and all that sort of thing. Happy to talk to you, Erica.
Fantastic.
So it's just one of those things I don't want to put it on the general chat for everyone to see because it will be personal information in there. So so if you do want to talk to Derek on a personal point, just send info@edgeradioaustralia.com.au.
Or they can go to my
No
website.
AU.
There's no AU.
They can book in. They can book in a free 15-minute consult with me. Just go to my website and click those buttons and just say you heard us on Edge Radio Australia. So I know.
See,
this
wow,
conversation.
Derek's
So
finally promoting himself. Well done,
Yeah.
Derek.
Well done.
Well done.
you can do that now while I'm talking, and it'll pop up on my email, and we can
Beautiful,
contact
beautiful.
later. All right.
All right, but what I'm going to get at is that this government has a history, and all governments, but this one, when it comes to tax cuts and changing the tax,
Yeah, they're full of shit.
yeah, they are right. Okay, so how can we possibly believe this man when?
Well, give us the information that they're
Yeah.
entitled to. They've asked under the Freedom of Information Act for this information. give it to them. If it takes you, if you have to work the weekend,
Yep.
do it.
Look,
We
I
had-
personally had some information that I actually did a freedom of information about some stuff regarding John Quigley, okay, our Attorney General here or whatever you want to call him.
He didn't contest, so he won't be for much
No,
longer.
he won't be for much longer. But kind of my point is this, is that I asked very simple information. I was very, very direct about it. It was a very strict amount of time, very strict amount of people involved. And guess what? Oh, it was a real problem. They couldn't actually find the information, and the information that was sent to me was fully like big chunks of it were redacted. So it was effectively, here's a name at the top and here's a name at the bottom, and that was like literally so difficult to get that information from them. Our government is not, and this whether
not
this that's a
transparent
state.
at all.
No, there's no transparency whatsoever. That's at state level. So what do you expect from the same effective government but on a federal side?
So you just got to wait until Labor's not in power and
Yep.
then do it again.
You
and
do.
see what comes out.
Yep.
So again, with this one, first of all, from experience, if they're saying they're not looking at it, they're looking at it.
Of course.
It's as simple as that.
Well, if there's
the-
1,000 documents that come up on a search about that one issue, then they're looking at it from
Of
my
course,
perspective. It's coming up
absolutely.
in discussion.
And the thing is, freedom of information, all they got to do is go Control P, save to PDF, and there it is.
It's a
Send
big
it
job.
out.
Big job.
Very hard
Oh.
job. Needs $150,000 a week for that.
I reckon.
Yeah. That's Treasury's involved. Of course, it needs that much money.
Okay. So well, I mean, obviously we've just talked about what we can do about it, but people are making decisions about investments property is not going to carry on.
Yep.
Uncertainty about this. I mean, what does that do to our financial markets?
It causes uncertainty. You hit the nail on the head, and that's not what you want in any investment structure,
Not at all.
because you want, to some extent, houses are as safe as bricks are as safe as houses, or whatever the phrase is. What's the
Not
phrase?
always, but majority.
But this is
Safe
one
as
of the
houses.
biggest Australian investments we're talking
course it is.
about. Most people, if they're going to do investing, go into this direct
Mhm.
investing, go into this space. If you get rid of capital gains tax exemptions and negative gearing, the problem with this is not just investment point of view, but the social problems as well. That's what I'm more concerned about. We've got a housing problem already. If you get rid of negative gearing, right, investors are going, right, we're not going to take the risk in
Yep.
putting these houses up and providing houses for rental. The landlord actually is providing a solution to the government, right?
That's right.
And this is what they're not getting, right? If you punish the one and make it so difficult, they go, fine, we'll take our money
they don't-
elsewhere.
they
But
don't
they
care
are
about that.
No, they're providing solutions to homelessness.
Well, they're in a bubble, mate. Like, okay, they're in Canberra. They don't have any idea what's happening in the real world, and they don't speak to their constituents. They live, as I say, like in this completely separate entity. This world that doesn't.
They do live in it. They
represent
do
us.
understand it. You got to remember they're a socialist government. What they're pissed about is they don't have control of it. They don't have access to it. They want the property market to crash, because what happens when the property market crashes?
Well, they can run in
They
and then buy.
foreclose.
With
Yeah,
cheap.
the houses foreclose from the
Mhm.
banks, and then the government can step in and start taking over things like that. So all of a sudden, everyone is reliant on the government for the housing side of
True.
things. Okay, so it's up to the government to release a house. I think there's a much more sinister aspect to this, and you've got to understand the actual basic constitution of the Labor government to
Yes.
understand why they're doing this.
Okay, on the front of okay, let's talk about public housing. Okay, public housing. I'm told.
By the way, the housing industry makes up 5% of Australia's GDP,
Okay,
so it's a large whack of
I
all our
agree.
finances.
Okay, when we talk about public housing at the moment, I've been told by somebody in the industry that the current waiting time, right, the shortest waiting time. So if you fit all the criteria, if you're an Indigenous single mum, okay, which is the quickest way you'll get, that's how the system works. It's 12 years.
No,
12
that's
years.
not right. So I know that from experience, because if you're already in the system,
Yep.
and you can prove that the house that you're in is not fit for human habitation, they'll move you within 2 months.
Okay, I'm assuming from this person I spoke
So
to,
this-
there would be
this
people
happened like
coming
3 weeks
into the
ago, 4
system,
weeks
right? Okay,
Different story.
so okay, that's what I'm told, and I'm also told that particular people who will apply for public housing will have a wait. The longest I've heard is 21 years.
Yeah.
Now, how do you live your life like that? Why do you want to plan your life that way? But at the same time, I understand, what, are you in a position where you're in your 40s, for argument's sake, and you think, oh, I'm just struggling to survive.
Well-
Now, do I have to go into that so that in my mid 60s, I've got some sort of place to live? I mean, is that how it
No.
works?
There was the public housing sector is full of abuse. There was I'm trying to remember the name. I can see her face. There was a politician in Australia. Her mother was a state housing person, so generational welfare dependency.
Sure.
And so she got given a house, and then she was in Parliament for a long time.
Okay.
Because public housing isn't means tested. So even as a sitting
Really?
member of Parliament, she was still in public housing.
It's not means tested.
No, it's not.
How does that work?
It could have changed in the last 10 years,
Okay.
but my understanding is it's still not means tested. So if you start in public housing
Yep.
and then you get a job or whatever and you start doing whatever, they don't take you out of the house. You stay in that house. So I'd love to know how many people in the public housing system can afford to get a house on their own, but they're not moving because they know there's no houses available.
I would say that's very
Well,
much
and
the
that's
case.
understandable.
Yeah,
Of course
but
it
I
is.
don't blame the person.
I
It's just
blame
the
the-
system
No,
they're in.
not at all.
So the
Sorry, Derek, you
entire
go.
system is stuffed at the moment.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, getting back to Travis's point in terms of the market, if the market is to crash in Australia, and they've been talking about this for ages in terms of the property market, and it hasn't happened. All right, it's stagnated. It's stagnated for 10, 15 years recently after the boom prior to that, but it hasn't crashed per se.
I wouldn't call that so this is coming in, say, early 90s, whatever.
Mhm.
And if you use the assumption that the house market doubles every 10 years,
Mm.
that's where it should be at. We're still so far above where we should be. Even if we had a massive crash, let's say the market lost 30-40%, it'd probably still be above where it should be.
Well, okay, let's think
So-
about this
Well-
from 50 years ago. Think about it from a percentage of your wages, right? Okay, think
Yeah.
about what percentage of your wage would go to
Oh,
your
I
mortgage.
hate this argument, but anyway.
Okay, and I know the houses have gotten bigger and more expensive from that
Well,
point.
actually, they've gone smaller and smaller blocks as well.
Well, the blocks have definitely got smaller.
Yeah.
Sorry, more to the point, the houses got fancier. Okay, because I mean, most of us grew up in a 3x1, right? That's or certainly, that's how I
With
see
an
it.
outhouse.
Yeah.
Well, if you have a look at most units that have been townhouses, apartment complex,
Yep.
most apartment complexes are like 2 bedrooms. Strata title properties houses, the vast majority of them are 3x1s or 3x2s. So most houses these days that are getting built are actually
Okay,
3-bedroom
well,
houses.
Where I'm going on this is the fact that, okay, as a percentage of the value of the house or apartment or whatever, okay, the
Yep.
property you live in, your wages are such a
Yep.
small part of it, whereas before, so the actual affordability has gone completely out the window.
But this is why I hate this argument. So
What?
out in the moment, let's talk about right now.
Okay.
So generally, I think it's about 60% of your income, like a two-person income, goes
Yep.
towards the mortgage or the house repayments.
Sure.
So back in the 70s, 60s,
Mhm.
it was only about 25%.
Okay.
Even at those stupid high
And they
interest
used to
rates.
say, yeah, if it was above 30%, you're
wouldn't
under
get-
mortgage stress.
Yeah. So
Right.
now I think it's 70% is actually the
Oh,
mortgage stress.
oh,
Correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but anyway. So the biggest difference is, and you can't compare the two because the system we're in is totally different. So
Yep.
have a look at what welfare options were available in the 60s
Sure.
compared to now.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'll take that on
So
board.
it was totally different. The amount of money that the government's paying out back then
Yep.
is minuscule compared to what they're paying
Oh, don't
now.
get me started on the fact
Like-
that they started the social class. They absolutely
It's-
thoroughly financially incentivized being a single parent.
What's the solution here in Australia
Release
in
more
terms of
land.
land? Well, okay,
Absolutely.
you want to
more
release land. That's great, and I agree. We've got a nice shortage of land and that sort of thing. But then, what do you say to all those who've paid their mortgages off and they've got lovely houses, or they're in a mortgage? That just suddenly reduces the price of their land that they're holding.
Sorry,
Or the- or
but
the-
that's
or the-
as
the-
a landowner,
Mm.
that's a risk you take. Like when you buy a share,
Mhm.
should the government guarantee the value of that share?
Of course
No,
not.
that's a risk you take. When you buy an investment property, the fact that it may go down
But
is a
didn't-
risk we have to accept.
this is the problem with politics. Okay, in Australia, is they only think in 3 years,
Of course they don't.
Yeah.
allotments. Okay, if we think long term here, I think we've agreed that Australia needs to become more self-sufficient in terms of what it produces.
Of course.
right?
Mhm.
To do that, we need different towns and cities in different areas, right?
Yep.
The smart thing is to start building those towns and cities now. Okay.
Yes.
And then you've got, okay, to attract people to go there, hey, there is cheaper land here,
Mhm.
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
And the cities
I've said
start
this before on one of the
emerging
shows,
in those places.
and it's got to be more than 4 hours away. Like adding land, let's say for WA,
Mhm.
adding extra land in Geraldton, Albany, it's too
Not
close.
around surrounding areas. I'm talking completely.
We've got to go further, like Carnarvon. We've got to go
You
inland
reckon?
as well, beyond like Hyden and out that way. Because what it is, we want want it to be far enough away from the city that they're not going to go, oh, let's just go to the city
Well,
and relocate the city. because
It's
there's
not
more
just
jobs.
moving out to the bush for the sake of moving out to the bush. There's got to be a reason for
Yeah,
it.
there's got to be
right?
jobs there.
There's got to be jobs. There's either natural minerals
So-
there, or there's special developments in terms of, if you wanted to do a space program, right? Obviously, you don't want to do that right next to the CBD.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So the other thing is, and I'm glad you said this because this is one of the campaign things that I was running on back in 2019. So the Fremantle Wharf is done. Like the pillars underneath are corroding. Like it needs a
It's
total
a busy
rebuild.
port.
It's a very busy port and it needs to be relocated. So what a lot of people in Fremantle want is to change it from a freight port into a tourist port. So,
That's my thought.
or that sort of,
That's
yes,
what I like.
100% agree with it. Where do you think they want to move it?
Well, the
Kwinana.
Coburn Sound, yeah, absolutely. Did move down to.
So they want to
Kwinana.
create the Kwinana Outer Harbour.
Yes.
So that's Rockingham. You're literally just out of the metro area.
Yep.
On top of that, they want to create a special economic zone where whoever owns the land determines the labour laws, opening hours, and all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
So all of Kwinana will effectively no longer be Australia. And there's a
Oh,
labour
that's
report.
a bit-
No, there's a report that actually outlines everything. Even the World Bank said that any first world country is stupid to create a special economic zone. So that's coming directly from the Maritime Union. So anyway, moving forward, why the hell are you building a new wharf within the Perth metro, like as close you are?
Mhm.
It should be going to Geraldton. Bunbury is another place. There's a place in just north of Geraldton called Oakajee. It's a
Okay.
natural 32-meter deep harbour.
Okay.
There's next to zero environmental
Yeah.
impact.
That's all great.
Yeah.
But okay, then the argument would be transport, because then
Why?
you've got to
You've
put
got the
things-
train
you've
line
got to
down
put,
the coast.
You've got to put more train lines in.
No,
Okay.
they're already there.
They're already there?
WA is absolutely
Okay,
littered
okay.
with train lines.
All
You got
right.
to remember during the gold rush time.
Yep.
How did they get everything from Kalgoorlie to Perth?
Sure.
Train
Okay.
lines.
Okay. So that's in place, and you could put road trains on, obviously with the trucks.
Yeah.
But that is more costs, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Can it balance that? I mean,
Yes. Easily.
can it?
Easily.
Okay.
So let's look at Midland, for example. You
Mhm.
run the train line out to Midland. There's already
Yep.
train tracks
There
there.
is. It's there.
Run all the cargo. So you remember there's a train track near Port Hedland
Mhm.
that's like 2.3 kilometers long.
Sure.
Okay. So it's bigger. It's well and truly big enough to be
Mhm.
able to fill out an ore carrier in one train.
Okay.
Okay. So a ship comes in, you put it on the train, send it to Perth, send it to a holding yard in Midland, and then
Yep.
from there send the trucks in and out.
Okay.
So
that
why
works.
would
Oh,
you
yeah,
send
I
the
understand.
trucks into Perth and send them out and block up to things like South Street,
Well, the problem
running trucks through residential areas? It just doesn't make sense.
So as I said, the problem is though, government only thinks in 3-year allotments when
Thoroughly
the next
agree.
election is, and so I think we've got to re-look at that and go, guys, look. I mean, I hear some of the election promises going, oh, we're going to reduce this, we're going to give more handouts to these people, we're going to do this, the welfare type win votes
Mhm.
policy card that
buy
they
votes.
play.
Buy votes.
And it's going, look, to really, we should see all Australians prosper. We should not have homelessness in this country.
No way. There's no need for
There
it.
is no need for it. There's plenty of wealth here. So there is a absolute problem in terms of managing that wealth that
We
we've got
need-
to address.
We need statesmen again, right? Not politicians. We need statesmen. So people who do think longer term, people who are thinking about, creating an environment and a society that
Well,
has a real future.
That's fair,
Not
but
3
you
years.
have had one in the United States recently and got all this hate mail for it, and then they got all these politicians getting their nose out about that
Yep.
that individual.
Yep.
And now they realize, well, hang on a second, he wasn't so bad than we thought he was. Let's bring him back.
Well, and we do.
The reality is, people don't like change. Eric.
No. And as
hate change.
Australians love, the tall poppy syndrome, right? They love to tear anybody down who stands up for them, which is ridiculous and it grates me. Please change that. Because we would have such a better society if people with great ideas were actually able to stand up and be heard and not have every man his dog tearing at them.
I hear it on the radio, oh, Australians don't want to see everybody driving around in luxury cars, and I'm thinking,
Why not?
Why
wouldn't
not?
it be great? We don't produce our own cars anymore.
Yep.
Wouldn't it be great if every Australian was driving a luxury car if they wanted to? If you want
Yeah.
your ute and that sort of stuff, that can be a luxury too. I mean,
It
you can
should
get
be
luxury,
a luxury
utes,
ute, a
but
Marlowe.
well,
Lumpy.
if you want that, great. But let's not.
Well, yeah, and it comes back to the little theory about, I would rather thrive than just survive, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand what
But
that
we would
ethos.
never, ever, ever be able to thrive under a Labor government because they always try and steal everything off you. Hey, Taz. By the way, Taz just jumped in.
Hey, Taz, how you going? Now, do we have any other questions from the board, so to speak?
Oh, Tony wants a Malu, by the way.
Oh, don't we all, mate?
I don't blame him.
Don't we all?
Erica sent one. Oh, hang on. What's wrong one? This one.
And I'm a Ford man, and I
As a
saw one.
menopausal woman down south is far better option. Forget anything that causes boob sweat or ball sweat. So she's talking about relocating the harbour down to like.
So who was that?
That's Erica. Oh, I just love Erica.
That's
She's
a
so
classic.
cool.
You are very funny.
So yeah, and then a whole heap of like clapping. So
Awesome.
so I think that was in regards to everyone should be able to thrive, not just survive. The biggest problem is I had a bit of an epiphany about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
This is just after I filleted my foot open, so the painkillers might have been the cause of this one at the time.
Could
so
be.
I came to an epiphany that Australia is actually both a socialist and a capitalist country.
You mentioned to me, and I
Yeah.
can't believe it. I'm going to agree with the shaved monkey here. Go.
So for the people who work or do things under their own name.
Yep.
So let's start on the lower social economic thing. Let's say you're stay-at-home mum.
Yep.
You don't work, you just look after kids, fully government welfare funded.
Okay.
Or, disability pensions, whatever. So you are in an absolute 100% socialist country.
Makes sense.
All your welfare's paid for
Yep.
you, your schooling's paid for you for the kids, your income is paid for your kids, you get massively discounted power, water, everything's massively discounted. Pretty much the government pays for everything.
Yep.
Fantastic. Let's say you've got someone who's just entered the workforce and earns, say, $40,000 a year.
Mm.
Little bit of tax, you're still getting a heap of help from the government, and you're pretty much told what to do, where to go. They regulate everything in the workforce for you. You get just enough to start getting ahead.
Okay.
And now this is where it becomes a real socialist government, and it's sort of like the crossover. So let's say you're now a professional, you finish your university, you finish your trade, you're earning, say, $250,000 a year. Like, you've got a really well-paying job.
Sure.
You know how much tax you're paying in that
Oh.
tax bracket? You are being taxed through the nose. They're absolutely fisting you up to their elbow. So what's happening is, because you're doing everything under yourself, they don't want you to get ahead, because they're going to they're stealing anywhere between 40 to 50% of your tax of what you earn.
Of your income. Yeah.
On top of that, you don't have access to free schooling anymore because you earn too much. You don't get free health services.
No.
You've got to pay for your hospital yourself. And on top of it, you then got the Medicare levy on top of another 3% on top of what everyone else is paying, because you're doing well for yourself.
You're being punished for
Yep.
success.
So this is where the crossover is. So let's say you do have a bit of financial knowledge, a bit
Mm-hmm.
of education behind yourself. And I'm not talking the government funded education. You've actually taught yourself how to do things. You've spoken to some really good accountants, financial planners, people like Derek, and you've got that understanding of the wealth system.
Shop for your knowledge.
And so
Mhm.
what's happened at this point, you've decided, you know what? I'm going to work for myself instead of working for someone else. I'm going to set up foundations,
Mhm.
structures, and everything. So I'm going to pull myself away from the government system through
Sure.
a tax file number, and I'm going to go through an ABN system.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is, all of a sudden, you don't get the free hospital stuff, you don't get the schooling and all that sort of stuff, but you pay your tax after you've done all your expenses. So all of a sudden, instead of paying, 40, 50% tax, which
Yep.
is through the nose, you're only paying like 15 to 20, 30% tax.
Sure.
So then from that point, you're now into a capitalist system.
Oh, beautiful.
So I
capitalism.
actually think that Australia is actually a dual, a dual government system.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
are
yeah.
both the capitalist system and a socialist system at the same time.
As I say, I thoroughly agree, and it's a very interesting way of looking at it.
And
It's pretty
depending
accurate.
on, and the cool thing is, you don't have to be earning more than $250,000 to be a part of the actual capitalist system to pay less tax. You've just, as long as you get some really good, clean advice when you're early,
Sure.
get a good accountant. And I'm not H&R Block, nothing against them, but they're just a socialist accountant, in my opinion.
Well, there's some business, yeah.
Go find some real accountants. Go do your financial courses. They're not that much. And when you look at how much money you can save in tax in the long run versus how much the education costs, it's well worth it.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, what you're saving in tax is extra income. Well, you know what I mean?
I
Like,
think
it's income you're entitled to.
You will spend money on what you value.
Yeah.
And you'll spend your time on what you value. And I find it funny because, one of my courses that I do is not on the cheap end. And I don't apologize for that,
Why
because,
would you?
I've got clients who more than paid for their course costs in the
Mhm.
wealth that they've generated
Of course.
after doing the course. I go, that's
Well,
what it's about. They got value for money.
Yeah,
right?
that's a
So-
business decision. You are deciding to invest X, Y, Z, and you're going to make a profit out of it. You're going to make more money.
I
Makes
don't
sense.
earn, I'm nowhere near a millionaire. The one's a different story, but no, I'm nowhere near a millionaire. And that's been done intentionally. So the money I've saved in tax alone has paid for Derek's courses multiple times over.
There you go.
So like, why would you you pick the system you want to be in. So if you want to be controlled and with a dog leash and said, right, you will go to this doctor, you will go to that school, you will teach your kids this sort of stuff. If that's what you want, then happy days, stay in that system. But if you don't want to be in that system, you need to talk to people like Derek, get yourself educated, find out what you can and can't do, because you still got to remember this is still the system they're in place. The government has set these systems up intentionally for the people that they want to control and not control, because I guarantee you all their donors like, you know what? I don't want that system. I want this system. So they've set it up so we allow it.
And I would take it a step further. I think you raised an excellent point, but you'll find this in any political structure, right?
Yep.
There's what I call the Babylonian economy.
Yes.
Right. Which goes back to ancient Babylon. You look at where it originated from and how it came to being. It goes, whoa, I never saw it. I never knew that was in existence, as opposed to the preferred economy, and how God set up life for us to actually live. When I got that in my heart and saw the contrast, and when I really understood it, it then led me down the path of, okay, how do I operate in that preferred economy system, right?
Yep.
Now my students get the benefit of that. And it's funny because I could tell you some of the results you're getting, but most people wouldn't believe it because it sounds too good to be true.
Look,
but it's a spiritual and something in the heart that has to shift and change.
I agree.
If you're going to step into that.
Derek, I've done your course on you're referring to and learning about the Babylonian system, and thank you for ruining me for life.
But
I can never look at that rubbish. I can't.
You've been unlocked, Aaron.
I have.
You've been,
I have. I'm like a computer game, and I'm going to go to the next
you
level.
got the cheat codes now.
Cheat codes. Awesome.
Sorry, it's the block up, down.
It's funny because I said that to one of my students recently.
Scorpion's fatality on Mortal Kombat, the original one.
Of course.
So yeah. Sorry, computer nerd 101.
It's funny because I wrote that to one of my students recently who are frustrated. They're frustrated in their career. They know in their heart they need to change. They're starting a business. They're doing some stuff. They were looking at trading and stuff like that. And they were just wrestling with the whole dynamic. And I know the wrestle. I know what it takes to take that leap out of that system, go, yeah, I mean, I got to do this. And I just wrote to him, literally, I said, congratulations. You have been ruined for life.
You have been.
And the one thing I will say for the people who do want to get away from that safety net, just go have a look at a cat in the wild versus a cat in the house.
Okay.
Right? The cat's like comfy. It rolls on its belly, gets scratched on the belly, and is like, and they live longer, but they don't have fun.
What a strange analogy, but thank you for that. Really do. Really, look, I mean, to me, I would take it completely differently.
To our dog lovers out there.
To me, it's made this difference.
Actually, for the dog lovers.
Okay,
here you go. So you've got a dog, you let it go off the lead, and it goes back inside. Do you want to be that pampered fat dog that does nothing, it doesn't achieve anything? Or do you want to be that dog, the moment you take it off the lead, it just
gone.
It's gone. It's gone. It's having adventures. It's having a blast. It's pissing on every pole it can find.
It's out there on 600 acres on a farm.
Yeah, and it comes back when it wants to come back. So which dog do you think has more fun?
Well, clearly the dog that does the runner. This dog right here loves the fact that this information has allowed me to literally live my life purpose. That's the big difference, right? And that's not about, I'm not even talking about the financial side of things. Obviously that's related. Obviously that's a big part of it, but just the knowledge has opened my mind to what's bigger than the things that were restricted. Yes. And the things that were holding me back are no longer holding me back. So it is as much a financial decision as it is a spiritual decision in my eyes.
All right. Taz's dog, Taz says, our dog is a fuss over fat dog. Right. I've met Dozer, and he's like, no, I'm not running anyway. Just give me food.
Life's too good here. Life's too good.
He's an extremely pampered giant of a dog. So
all right. Well,
I don't think he can run.
I think on that end, when we're talking about animals for some strange reason, that's right, the shaved monkey. I think we should end the show. I think that's us for the week. Thank you very much for being part of the show. For everybody who's online, really, really love the importance. It means so much.
We need to give one more shout out to one of our newer sponsors as well for Amodius Legal.
It's Amadeus Legal.
Is that how you say
you
it?
Can't,
I don't know.
How did you do that?
Is it?
How did you do that to that word?
I don't know.
It's Amadeus
anyway,
Legal.
It's Nina. It's just Nina. So
who is just
all your
fantastic.
property settlements, property questions, and all that sort of shit. Give them a call. She's insanely awesome.
She is absolutely. And you know what? Okay, there is no one in
and
the
she's
world.
doing the settlement for our properties in Geraldton when they settle. So,
Fantastic. Look, there's no one in the world who will be more anti-lawyer than me. Any opportunity I can get to have a go at a lawyer, this is one of the reasons why we've got Amadeus Legal on, because as a supporter, because I absolutely, there was this synergy in our beliefs. I love the fact that they are working, and Nina is working in her integrity, and that she's genuinely looking after people and using the system really, really well. So for us, for me, from a personal standpoint, to promote a legal firm, it had to be someone who was just bang on the money with those ideals, and absolutely Amadeus Legal. So thank you very much for joining.
Just
the
a reminder, they're not like criminal law or anything. They're
No, no.
property law.
Absolutely.
So just make sure it's but if you do have criminal law questions or anything like that, give them a call, because they'll be able to point you in the right direction.
Yep, very true, very true. And they've been able to put me in the right direction for some other issues that I've had to be involved with, which is going to be a lot of fun.
Well, I'm looking forward to Johnny Boy.
Oh, it's going to be so good. Anyway, we'll move on from there. But if you do obviously want to promote yourself through Edge Radio Australia, or obviously your YouTube channels, or any of the other goodies, don't be a stranger. Get on the old internet and just go to edgeradioaustralia.com, go to the contact page, and away we go. Fantastic.
And yours, Derek, what's your best way to contact you?
Probably through the website, blueskyfactory.com.au. It's blue without an E, just to make it tricky for you. BLUSKY factory.com.au.
And
fill in a free 50-minute consult thing, and I can contact you that way.
And
Beautiful.
if you do want to find out what's going on in crypto, Orange Brick Road, their website, Aaron, is...
Oh, yeah.
I'll put you on the spot, haven't I?
Absolutely. Go to edgeradioaustralia.com. Every few seconds, one of our beautiful supporters will come up on the screen. And if you want to speak to Orange Brick Road, and why wouldn't you want to speak to Brandon, just simply click on it. It will take you straight there. Easy. So if you're
plugged to everyone,
I think we have. We have. If you're looking for an MC for any event, all right. I think that's the show. Thank you so much for being involved. As I say to everybody there online, really appreciate this. If you do appreciate what we're doing here at Edge Radio Australia, please share, like, and subscribe to all those things. But promote, if you can do that. Promoting free speech is unbelievably important because it's really becoming quite a struggle to have it, and it is a right that we should be able to enjoy. So with that, that is the end of the show. Thank you very much for being part of the Greater Wealth here on Edge Radio Australia.
Go Dockers.